The thing I think about life is how do you become joyful? I mean, what I'm obsessed with is how do you become joyful? How do you practice doing things that will end up with you being happy and joyful, right? I know for sure from my work that you can't reach happiness or joyfulness in one big leap. You know, that the way, there's a book written by a guy, it was called Happier. I'm not sure who the author was, but the idea that you can be happier today than you were yesterday is very exciting to me. But it's not exciting to me to say you must figure out how to be happy. So I really think that that the whole important thing in life is to understand that it's a process, not an end thing. You can't measure whether, all the things that are difficult, you're on a diet, you have to get into the experience of doing something today, that was better than what you eat better today, exercise more today than you did. Anything that seems like very difficult, I really think that the secret to life in that sense is to have an enjoyment of getting a little better all the time. Practicing joy is how some people say it, So, if you practice worry, I mean, I'm a worrier, so I practice worrying all the time. I'm really good at worrying. And so everything makes me worry, right? In some ways, it's superstitious that things have come out I have a pretty good life. And so maybe that was because I worried. So anytime something important comes up, I do a lot of worrying before, because that's what I need to do in order to be successful. Is worry leads to success in my mind, which I know is not true. So anyway, so to me, the question about kind of what's meaningful, what do I think about life, is this notion of that the things I want, happiness, carefreeness, I mean, all those things are attained by doing things in a kind of a successive small way every day. And so I really have a more different life than I used to have, where I was kind of, I wasn't worried about the process. I was just thinking about the end goal. And I think this is true in many things in life, where you want to be rich, you want to be healthy, you want to be stuff, but you don't do anything today about that. You're just kind of waiting for it to happen to you, right? And then I don't feel like I'm accomplishing anything when I do that, and I'm worried that I'm not going to achieve those things. Whereas if I say, okay, I'm going to be better, I'm going to do something that makes me more joyful today, or more, the next day and the next day. When I had a terminal cancer diagnosis in 2007, and this is kind of where I started thinking about that. I was an unexamined life until I got to that. And one of the things that the psychiatrist that I was working with did, which was really great, was he made me go through my calendar. At the end of every week, I went through my calendar, and each day he made me assign a number between 0 to 10 of how much fun I was having that day. He's forget happiness. He thinks fun, like how much fun are you having? That secret to life is having fun. And so I would say, I had a 7 this day and an 8 day. And then what he and I would talk about was, why was this day a 7 and this day was a 5? And you started to see, in the kind of data of that, you started to see that, faculty days where I had faculty meetings were low, so I'm going to stop going to faculty meetings. I got tenure, I'll stop going to faculty meetings. And you saw the things that made you, and I started to notice that. And when you start thinking about how you're going to be more joyful, like I found out that that singing loudly on the radio when I'm in the car, it's kind of fake at first, because you're trying to practice being happy when you might not be so happy. But I just found that if I sing in the car, loudly, it makes me actually happier, makes me more joyful, even though it seems a little hokey at first. You're just singing in the car, but I know that doesn't mean. So I'm always looking for things that that I can do that will kind of get in the practice of enjoying myself, or getting the practice of being happier. And pretty soon it actually, to me, it actually works. So all through this process of going through cancer treatment and stuff, I started to understand that it was that the things I enjoyed, I should emphasize rather than keep doing the things like worrying and being angry or feeling unlucky. That those are just, those could be replaced by figuring out who my friends were and spending more time with my friends and stuff. So I think the short answer to the question is, I think the kind of secret to life stuff for me is deciding to work on it all the time rather than trying to reach the destination called a good life or happiness or being joyful or carefree. So I'm on the enjoying the process of life period, and it works for me. I have one concept that I'm trying, this is my life's work now, which is how do you help people have confidence in their creative ability, right? So many people opt out of thinking that they're creative when they're a young person. So it's a really funny thing in our world that if you can't draw very well when you're 6 years old, we put you in the not creative category. And if you for some reason have the talent that you see very well and you can draw, then we say, oh, this is creative. We don't do that with music. We don't say, oh, if you can't play a piano without ever practicing, then you're not a musician. No, we expect that you will have to learn how to play the piano. Well, I don't know why, but we somehow expect that you don't have to learn how to draw, that you do it naturally. So anyway, so at some point, many people start thinking of themselves as not creative, and it goes all the way up through adulthood, where people will say to me, oh, I'm not creative. I'm an accountant, or I'm an engineer. I'm not creative. This is just not true. It's been my experience here at Stanford with young people from all disciplines that you can unlock their creativity. They just have they have some kind of barrier in the way. It's not that they're fearful that they'll be judged by someone else, so they don't act creatively. Or it's like there's some fear that that they'll look silly if they act creatively, if they act playfully. So I'm on this kick for the last X number of years to show people that they are creative. And it's very straightforward. I mean, people, they're naturally creative. Just go into a kindergarten class and watch what they do, or give them a little problem. It's wild. They're wildly creative. I can tell you so many stories about how creative little kids are. But somehow our society convinces people that they're not creative in general. And so it's just so much fun for me to watch somebody gain their creative confidence. Lots of time they cry. They say, oh, it feels so good in my body to be a creative person. And so the punchline of this story is that the way that you help someone be creative is what the psychologists like Albert Bandura call guided mastery. So if you have some fear of snakes or fear of spiders, in my case, fear of being judged by other people, the way to get past that is what he calls guided mastery, which is a series of small successes. So if you take someone who has a fear of anything, and again, in my case, fear of, I take the students through lots of little projects, small projects, where they become successful. And after doing a whole bunch of projects creatively, we're holding their hand and making sure that they solve them creatively. At the end, they say, oh my God, I am creative, right? And so it's that step by step. So what happens is that fear becomes familiar. You're familiar with having a creative success. It becomes more normal for you to kind of be actually creative, to come up and you say, oh my God, look at this idea I came up with. And so, I have many students who sit in my office and cry saying, you can't imagine, my whole life I didn't feel like creative, but I knew I was inside. And they have some weird thing about, they always have to have a reason. It can't just be that they're creative. So, my uncle is an architect. My mother is a dancer. And I'm thinking, I don't know if your uncle's an architect. I'm not sure there's any genes that came to you through that side. But anyway, people but what we really try to convince them is just that they're naturally creative. And by having those small successes, We do. It's really exciting to see their eyes sparkle and for them to own that confidence. The psychologists call this, I mean, I just use creative confidence because of the alliteration, I think, or something, but the real word is self-efficacy. Self-efficacy. And that's kind of this, that you have a sense of the world and that you believe that you can accomplish what you set out to do. If you thought how different the world would be, if people were confident that whatever they tried, they were going to be successful, there would be a lot more interesting things happening.